That's about all I have to say, I think. So we'll start right out. How about starting with introductions, and we'll start with Mark on the end.
Okay. Hi.
Hand
Oh,
this
I get the microphone. I'm pretty loud. I don't need it, but.
It helps to use the mic so it's spread evenly throughout the room now.
Okay. Yeah, this should work. Yeah, I'm Mark V. Anderson, and I'm basically running on a theme to simplify government. So basically, I want basic services: police, fire, roads, garbage, sewer, parks, and in particular, I'm against all this so-called economic development, such as with the Viking Stadium for $150 million, streetcars $190 million, downtown ramp $65 million. We have TIF spending $50 million every year, and so it's just all kinds of spending that we don't need to do. Instead, we need to spend money on what the city is supposed to be doing, which is the basic services. And another item that I'm pushing on is the trying to phase out a number of the occupational licensing, which like plumber, tree limb cutter, by the way, plumbers are licensed by the state already, and dance instructor, etc. And the last thing is transparency. Hi.
Very good. And if you run up to against the mirror, I will rap loudly on the table, and then we'll go to another dimension after that.
I'm Bill Kahn. Bob here was just asking me what the last Minneapolis mayor moniker meant, and that's pretty simple. I'm just advocating a council manager government for Minneapolis. I want to abolish the office of mayor, and to do that, we'd have to have a charter amendment to do that. And as a part of that, I think it would be a good idea to reorganize the council. I know there's a lot of problems with power cliques forming in Minneapolis government, and I think one way to eliminate those would be to reduce the number of geographic wards. So I had an idea to reduce them to the traditional sectors of the city, north, northeast, southeast, southwest, south, and I think that'd be a good way to run the city with another 8 at-large members. That's basically where I stand. That's my only issue. I'm here because I think police brutality is a big problem here.
Thanks. I'm Bob Fine. I've been on the park board for 16 years. I had to think about it. Usually when I go door to door, or talk to people, I say, I'm Bob Fine, I'm running for park board. It's in my brain. I just get it out. I've been on the city's Board of Estimate and Taxation for 16 years. I've been on the Minneapolis Civil Rights Commission for 18 years, up until the time I got on the park board. And I've been coaching kids. My most proudest thing is I've been coaching kids now 39 consecutive years in parks in the city. I'm running because I want to change government, change the way the city operates. My proposals are to streamline and audit city government, to carefully look at what they do. And then my objective is to reduce property taxes by 5%. And I also want to strengthen our relationship with both small and large business, because I think it needs more jobs. And I'll cut off before it reaches the cutoff.
Very good.
Hello, I'm Ole Savior. I'm a Republican, only one listed. And I was a DFLer for 35 years, and this is my 13th campaign in the year 2013. And I'm for the stadium for downtown Minneapolis. And Vikings, basically, they have, it's already set in motion. So everything's all set, and I think we can have a good stadium. And the cost of the stadium, I'm for casinos also downtown in Canterbury Downs, and they're offering $100 million for the Vikings to help the stadium. So that's some of the issues I have. Thank you.
We'll find up here.
Okay. I'm John Wilson, and this is my second campaign for mayor of Minneapolis. And I am a local affiliate of Mind Freedom International, which is a worldwide organization that fights psychiatric abuse. And my major issue is civil liberties. I would like to see less police harassment of the poor and the homeless, especially in downtown Minneapolis. And would like to see more tolerance for people who are a little different than the norm. And I will pass on that after that.
I'm Cam Winton. I'm offering fresh eyes in City Hall. I love our city. I'm sure you all do too, that you're here and taking the time out of a Saturday afternoon to engage about the big issues we're facing as a city. But for too long, there's been one perspective represented in City Hall, a ruling clique of insiders that I've described as a mutual back-scratching society. I'm not coming from that mutual back-scratching society. My colleagues and I have built a company that maintains wind energy turbines across the country. Last year, we maintained wind turbines in 33 states and 4 countries. And I'm drawing on that background because I've led a services delivery enterprise in the private sector, and City Hall at its best is a services delivery enterprise. It paves the roads, plows the roads, staffs the police department and the fire department. I've built a business in which 120 employees and their families have thrived, and I want to see that story repeated again and again in our city. And I've been able to do all of that because of a great public school education. And I want to make sure our public schools in Minneapolis are putting kids first. I'm Cam Winton. Thanks for your interest.
Well, I don't know if this is planned or not, but it's actually turning 420 at this very moment. I am very interested, as a current board member of Minnesota Normal, in legalizing the possession of a small amount of marijuana in the city of Minneapolis. I also am a Pirate Party candidate. I'm in favor of government transparency, the rule of law being followed in our city. I'm against wireless or warrantless surveillance of anybody in our city done by federal government agencies or our state or our county. And I'm in favor of the citizens of Minneapolis being able to rule ourselves through a process called liquid democracy. And you can actually sign up right now at blackbit.mnpirateparty.com and participate in ruling ourselves together.
Hello, I'm Doug Mann. I'm endorsed by the New Progressive Alliance and the Southside Pride newspaper. Big issues with me are the Viking Stadium. I filed a suit to force the city to put a referendum on the ballot on whether or not we're being paid for stadium taxes, and we're awaiting a judgment on that. Major initiative I want to do as a mayor is to have the Civil Rights Department detect and prosecute those engaged in illegal discrimination in the employment and housing markets. On the question of public schools, I'm opposed to the initiatives by the superintendent, which include eliminating tenure rights for teachers in the schools.
My name's Greg Iverson. I was born in Minneapolis. I've been in public service my whole life. I was in the military, taught school education, and finished up my career at the state agency, MnDOT. A lot of candidates have talked about education. I believe we have a elected school board which is responsible for the schools. I'm willing to work on any kind of mayor initiative to help students overcome any lack that they have, lack of ability or whatever. I'm in favor of better police training. We've spent in the last few years $8 million of city funds to straighten out problems that the police have caused by roughing up individuals. I've talked about council misbehavior. If you look at Don Samuels on the internet, he'll explain to you how he got an envelope full of money to vote for the stadium. And I hope you would ask your other council members who are running how much money they got.
Wow, that's impressive. We're right on schedule so far. Now let's not choke anybody here. Not a choking matter. This is not easy. Where's cordless technology when you need it? They're at the table, they're not of interest to me. We'll start with you. We're going to do, the next time we start, we'll start with you. So what we're going to do now is open up the floor to four questions from the sponsors, which I will read, and then again, now we'll up it to 90 seconds. I'll be a minute and a half per candidate, and we'll just, again, go in order. And the question number one from the sponsors, as I read it here, is, will you work with the city council to pass a city ordinance removing all criminal penalties for possession of less than 1.5 ounces of cannabis, and instruct Minneapolis law enforcement to not enforce the Minneapolis statutes making possession of less than 1.5 ounces a petty misdemeanor? Did everybody hear that okay? Okay, I'll let the mic go there.
I wasn't aware we had a local ordinance. I thought it was state law, but I would certainly work with anybody and put it on the legislative agenda. I don't think we should be prosecuting anything as far as drugs like marijuana, which I view as fairly harmless.
Yeah, it seems the question was, will you support changing a city ordinance? I actually do not know the city ordinance. I'm a lawyer, I'm a part-time judge, I don't know the city ordinance. We have state law specifically on this, and the city has no power to regulate state law. Where the mayor really has power is the mayor controls the chief of police, and I believe the city attorney's office does prosecution of this under state law. And my whole position is that I want to see the police spend their time on things that harm people. Things that harm people, that other people are harming people, and people who steal from other people and things like that. That should be the highest priority, not things like this that aren't harming anybody really. So that's what my position is. It's a matter of how you deal with the police chief and what the police are going to enforce, not so much changing an ordinance, which isn't going to affect state law, because there is state law in effect.
Is the volume okay? I just want to check. Hearing okay?
A little louder.
Didn't hear a word. Is this mic working? Is this okay? Oh. Speak right. It's kind of unidirectional, so speak right into the front of it. Yes.
Okay. I'm for medical marijuana, but I've got too many friends smoking pot, and they are not very good at it. No, pot can cause a lot of family issues, and they're wasting a lot of money, and pot actually turns from marijuana is ruining lives, and I'm not for it. Somebody has to stand up. I'm not for all this other drugs, crack cocaine, everything. These experimental. What age do you start telling these children not to be doing these, smoking pot and misbehaving? And there's a lot of that out there. And like I said, medical marijuana is different, but when these children are smoking pot, and when the police even pull the people driving, and they're erratic. They're just on the same level as drinking and driving, so I'm not for it.
I'm in charge of cord management. There we go.
Well, I agree with the last person that marijuana may cause some problems, but I believe the law against it and the enforcement thereof actually causes more. And so the lesser of the two evils. I would support this change in ordinance. Now, I don't know how the relationship between municipalities and the state government is in Minnesota as compared to Washington, but I am aware that in Seattle, there was a city ordinance that, this was before the state legalized marijuana, there was a city ordinance in Seattle that made it the dead last priority for the police. And I support the equivalent ordinance here if such would pass legal muster.
Marijuana laws are indeed a state issue, and as mayor, I do not want Minneapolis to get out ahead of the state. Rather, I would use the mayor's megaphone to persuade state legislators to enact the policy I thought was best. Regarding what policy I think is best, I'm watching very carefully to see how Colorado and Washington State fare with their current experiments with decriminalization or outright legalization of marijuana. On paper, the arguments in favor of decriminalization/legalization make perfect sense to me. But devil's in the details. And I want to see how it plays out, again, in practice in Colorado and Washington State. This is not some kicking it down the pike answer. I really am watching, and if it plays out fine there within the next year or two, then I would use the bully pulpit as mayor to persuade Minnesota state legislators to change the applicable laws. Because to echo some of what my fellow candidates have said, we need to focus the time and energy and money of law enforcement on crimes that actually impact people.
Well, first off, my name is Curtis Hanna. I believe I forgot to say that because of my 420 joke during my last comments. However, I do know for a fact that Minneapolis does have a city ordinance related to the possession of marijuana. I cannot cite the exact ordinance, but if you follow me on Twitter at Captain Curtis, I will be posting that right after the debate, the exact place where that is. But I do believe that we have a very large problem in Minneapolis. The ACLU recently had a report called Marijuana in Black and White come out that said that blacks are 9.1 times more likely to be arrested in Hennepin County than whites for marijuana possession. And this is something that, as the Minneapolis mayor, I will use the bully pulpit to tell the city council that this is a ordinance that needs to change, and that we, as law enforcement in this city, we should not be enforcing the state statute on this issue of possession of 1.5 ounces or less. And also, I just want to say that Minneapolis has a thriving beer community, and I believe that cannabis should be treated just like beer in this city because it is actually safer than alcohol.
Yeah, on the city ordinance, I could support that. There is an issue of whether there'd be a conflict with state law. However, the city can make enforcement a low priority and also favor alternative to prosecution. Diversionary programs. Legalization of marijuana and certainly something that would be on my legislative agenda. I think it's the war on drugs is generally a very effective way of criminalizing, disenfranchising, and marginalizing people of color. That's the statistic, the 9-to-1, is interesting because I think studies show that the difference between racial groups on marijuana usage isn't very great, and yet the law enforcement is, and a lot of lives have been destroyed. I'll give out my time here.
I agree with a lot of the other candidates here. On question 5 on the early questionnaire, my answer was not put down there. I questioned how much marijuana. Now, if somebody has a ton of marijuana, I would guess that they're probably not using it on their own in their home. So now that we're down to half an ounce or whatever, I would support any kind of information to the police that would allow that kind of situation. There are some marijuana suppositories. I asked someone, do they work? He said, well, not really, but boy, does my butt feel good.
Now we'll start with.
Okay.
Let's start with.
Hey, I haven't done it yet. My
I
turn.
thought he started with the introduction, so.
No, he started with the introduction, so he's the last one of this.
I haven't talked about marijuana yet.
Oh, I see. Oh, I see. We're still the same question.
Yeah, same question, I'm the last one. Yeah, there definitely is a question about the law. I agree that maybe we can't pass an ordinance, I'm not sure, although Curtis seemed to think that there was some sort of a law, so maybe that's so. I definitely would be in favor of a law to decrease the penalties at this point, decriminalize whatever. And even if not, we definitely can tell the police to decrease the priority. I mean, they do drug busts all the time. Why? It's a state law. I don't understand why the Minneapolis police have to enforce it any more than is legally required. And so I would definitely be in favor of, as opposed to what Cam said, being well in front of the state, because that's the only way it's ever going to happen, is, as someone said, that there was apparently a statute in Seattle, and now it's decriminalized in Washington. I suspect it's related, and maybe we could do the same thing in Minneapolis, that push it in Minneapolis. Maybe eventually it'll happen in Minnesota.
Okay, is that everybody?
That's everybody.
Sorry about that. Like I said, if it's too complicated, you shouldn't be mayor, but you really shouldn't be a moderator. All right. The second question from the sponsors, I'll just stand up, and people can hear me all right without the mic. Do you support a strong mechanism for the community to hold police accountable? If so, what should it look like?
It sounds like what we're talking about is the Civilian Review Authority. Do we have a strong Civilian Review Authority? Before I got on the park board, I spent 18 years on the Civil Rights Commission, and believe me, that was a huge issue. We spent years lobbying the city council to get the Civilian Review Authority. We were finally successful to get them to put it on, but they created the Civilian Review Authority to review the police, and then they didn't give it the teeth to actually do something. And that's what needs to be done. What was happening 20, 25 years ago is still going on, and we need to it's a bad picture for Minneapolis to have some of the things that happen. And it's not all the police, but some bad eggs ruin it for the rest of them. And we need a Civilian Review Authority that has the teeth to actually not only to properly investigate with proper subpoena power, but to actually do something and to implement. Because when police do things like this that are really bad, we need to find a way to fire them and to get rid of them. It's bad for all of the other police, and they know it as well.
I agree with that. Civil review, yes, but in a fair manner. When we talk about marijuana, there is federal laws against marijuana that can come in anytime they want, and they can do what they want, the federal laws. So just talking about state laws or even city laws can make a difference as far as the federal laws. As far as civil review, I agree with Mr. Fine. And yes, there should be issues that we can handle and in a fair manner. Thank you.
Yes, I believe we need a stronger civilian review authority. I think we need one that's not directly beholden to the mayor or the city council. I don't know what that would look like, but maybe as an example, we could have one that's appointed by the leadership of the various neighborhood associations. This is actually a new idea I just came up with about a minute ago. But considering how the current mayor and city council really decimated the last civilian review authority, I think that some kind of independent authority is the way to go to keep it actually honest. And with that, I'll pass.
Thank you. 3 C's. Everybody ready? Cameras, culture, and committee. On cameras, people may have seen the brouhaha in the press in the past 24 hours about the idea of putting cameras on officers that record what that given officer can see. In cities that have implemented cameras like that, allegations of police misconduct have gone down dramatically. Allegations or incidents goes down dramatically. In some cases, it's likely because it keeps police officers in check. In other cases, it's likely because people who were making false claims of misconduct no longer do so. There's both in there. We have to acknowledge that. Another thing that's important to acknowledge is that the vast majority of Minneapolis Police Department officers are amazing people. They are brave, they have integrity, and they're willing to put their lives on the line to keep my kids safe. I think it's really important that we acknowledge that. At the same time that we acknowledge that there are some really bad eggs in there. So cameras is one part of keeping the bad eggs in check, but an even more effective way to keep the bad eggs in check is that culture C I referred to. As I mentioned, I'm coming from a business that maintains wind energy turbines across the country, 120 employees. I'm proud of the fact that I and the other leaders of the company instilled a culture in which every single employee is not just empowered, but also obligated to create peer pressure to root out bad behavior, and that's what I would do on the force. And in my remaining time, that C, the committee, yes, we need an oversight committee. And I'm willing to give the current one a little more time to prove its mettle, but so far I'm not impressed with what I'm seeing.
Yes, I believe that we should have a civilian review authority that does have teeth, that does have subpoena power. I believe that this sort of process allows there to be a checks and balances upon the police officers in our city, which is paramount. Just as a general theme in my campaign, I am very interested in removing the idea that government or the security forces in our city are alienated or abstracted from us. I would rather us understand these entities as being one and the same as who we are. And I believe that responsible gun ownership will help police our city by having every household that is interested in being responsible in this manner to look after their own neighbors, and also have neighborhood watch entities in place. And also, I believe that really this is a sort of issue that the chief of police of Minneapolis should be listening to the Civilian Review Authority. Any sort of reports that come to them that have been independently verified to be a issue of police misconduct should result in disciplinary action, and that is something that I have not seen happening recently.
Yeah, I do agree that we need strong support mechanisms to increase police accountability. Liability insurance is something that I support, although in terms of implementation, I understand there are some problems to iron out. But I think that cops who have complaints against them should have to pay out more. Those are especially cops who are injuring and killing civilians. The cop cams sounds like a promising thing, and